Hey guys, it's Amy here, and today we're going to be doing my April wrap-up. In April I read 13 things, so I'm just going to jump straight into it because otherwise this video is going to be horrendously long. I'm going to be going from my lowest star rating to my highest star rating. So firstly, my only 2-star rating of the month was Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. I really wanted to like this book. I had high hopes for it and I'd heard lots of really good things and lots of people commenting saying, oh, I really love this book, it was my favourite book of 2013 and things like that, and I just didn't get along with it at all, not my cup of tea. This one follows the story of a girl named Ursula, and it is kind of set over the time period of World War I and World War II. In the prologue of the book we see Ursula kill Adolf Hitler, and then from chapter 1 it's the beginning of her life and it goes on from there. Basically the whole premise of the story is that there are multiple kind of strands and timelines, alternate kind of lifelines for this Ursula lady. I thought that was a really good concept and I just didn't think it worked very well because I ended up getting extremely confused. There were so many different characters. Because of all the different timelines and things like that, I just ended up feeling like I didn't really know the characters that well. To be honest, it kind of felt like the author just wanted to write all the different possibilities of the story. So you know when you read a book and you think, oh, I really wish the character hadn't died, it was like the author had kind of thought, oh yeah, I kind of don't want that character to die, so I'll just write another timeline in which they don't die, or I'll write this other timeline where this character gets married to this other one and this happens. So it was like all of the options were explored and I just didn't end up feeling anything for any of the characters, and that was a shame because I really wanted to like this one, and it did, I think, won the Costa Book Award, so yeah, a shame. Let me know down below what you thought of that one because I know a lot of you really loved it and I just really didn't get along with it at all. Moving on to the 3-star books, the first one I want to talk about is The Book of Memory by Petina Gappah. This one is set in Africa and it follows the story of a lady who is on death row. She has been accused of killing a white man. The lady in question is actually an African woman who has albinism, so she is completely white but she has the features of a black person. This obviously adds a completely different kind of spin to the story, and her upbringing and the way she's been treated her whole life and how she ended up being connected to this white man that she's been accused of killing is really interesting. Throughout the story you flick between her present day kind of thoughts and feelings while she's in the prison and kind of her remembering all the things that led up to the point in which this white man has been killed. The thing that I really loved about this book was the kind of African culture in there, because I've never really read any books set in Africa, I don't think, so it was just nice to kind of learn things about that and the way things are done over there, and it just made me want to read more things set in Africa. The only criticism that I have is that the book just felt a little bit disjointed in places and the flow of it just didn't really work that well for me, but overall I thought it was a really great read and I would recommend to all. Next in my 3-star pile is a graphic novel, and it is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Wolves at the Gate. This is the 3rd volume of the 8th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Follows on from the TV show if you've ever seen that. I really love this one because it had Count Dracula in, who was one of my favourite villains from the TV show of Buffy the Vampire Slayer because he's really funny. He has this kind of aura about him where everyone just ends up kind of falling in love with him and wanting to do everything for him, and Xander is kind of the most affected by this and he ends up kind of being like a puppy dog for Dracula, and it's just hilarious. I really felt that the actual humour of Buffy the TV show came out a lot more in this one. I felt that there were a lot of moments where I was just like, oh yes, this is Buffy, and it was just really good. So yes, I gave this one 3 stars. Next we have A Field Guide to Getting Lost by Rebecca Solnit. This is a non-fiction book exploring loss, being lost and getting lost and all the different things to do with being lost basically. The reason I gave this one 3 stars is that I found it a little bit hard to follow in places and I just didn't find myself really interested in what she was speaking about. But there were times when I did really like what she was talking about and what she was kind of discussing. The kind of various quotes and articles and things that she was pulling in were really interesting. What I loved the most was when she actually spoke about her own experiences and things that had happened in her own life, because I felt that she had a lot more confidence in that and she was really explaining it and making it really interesting, whereas the other things I just didn't have a lot of interest in, so that's why I gave this one 3 stars. Next we have The Gracekeepers by Kirsty Logan. I really enjoyed this book as well. This one was another 3-star read for me. This one follows the story of 2 young women, one called North, who lives on a circus boat with a bear that she performs with, and the other lady is called Callanish and she is a gracekeeper, and she essentially lives on her own little island. The job of a gracekeeper is to essentially do the funerals for all of the people who have died at sea. So people bring their dead to Callanish and she performs the kind of funeral for them. As you can probably guess, North and Callanish eventually meet and their stories kind of entwine. This book was beautifully written and I was really swept away with the story. I really went to the place that Kirsty Logan was describing. The only problem I had with this book was that I thought North and Callanish were actually going to spend a lot more time together than they did, and there was just one male character that I really disliked in the book and I thought his whole role was just a little bit unnecessary, or it could have been written in a slightly different way, because he just seemed to be a bit of a filler character for one person to get to another place in the book. If you've read it, you'll kind of know what I mean. But yes, anyway, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. My final 3-star book was Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't love it as much as Pride and Prejudice, but I think this is actually Jane Austen's first novel, so I can kind of understand maybe why I didn't think it was as phenomenal as Pride and Prejudice was. It follows the story of a young lady named Catherine who was on a visit to Bath with friends of her family, and while she's there she meets a dashing young man and his sister, and they invite her off to a place named Northanger Abbey, where she then goes with them to spend some time over the summer. The storyline as a whole was very linear and quite predictable. The kind of events that happened just followed Catherine and there wasn't very much else going on. Nonetheless, I love Jane Austen's witty style of writing, and the way her characters are written are just fantastic. So yes, 3 out of 5 stars for this one. Moving on to my 4-star reads for the month, and the first one I have here is A Feast for Crows by George R. R. Martin. This is a huge book. Unlike the other books in the series, this one follows a smaller selection of characters. So it follows Arya, Sansa, Cersei, Jaime, Samwell Tarly and Brienne of Tarth. If you've read any of the other books, you'll know that usually we kind of skip between tons of different characters and we end up having to wait like 20 chapters before we come back to someone that we like. What I really loved about this one is that the majority of the characters, I really love their storylines and what was happening. The only person I didn't enjoy in this one was Jaime Lannister, which is a surprise because in the other books I've really loved Jaime's storyline, but in this one I found him really boring. Surprisingly, in this one of my favourite storylines with Brienne of Tarth, and in the TV show she doesn't really get a lot of showtime, I guess, compared to everyone else, but in the book there's like loads going on with her and I really loved it. Obviously I can't really go into what this one is about, but if you haven't started the series yet, I would highly recommend that you do so. It is a fantastic fantasy series. It is just wonderful and I really love it. Next we have another small graphic novel type thing, and it is The New Ghost by Robert Hunter. This was sent to me by No Brow Press. As you can see, it's a really tiny little graphic novel, but the thing that I love most about this one was the illustrations. I'll try and flick through a few pages for you. Look how beautiful, the colour tones, everything. I just thought it was absolutely wonderful, and I'm really glad that they sent it over because I found it to be a really interesting little thing. I'm definitely going to be looking at more things from Robert Hunter because I thought the art style and the whole story was just really wonderful. Next we have The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. This is a YA book and the best YA book that I have read so far this year. It's the story of a girl named Faith, and her father is a scientist and they've had to move to an island because there's been a scandal surrounding her father's kind of discoveries and things like that. Faith and her family moved to this island, and within a few days of being there her father ends up dead, and whether he's been murdered or whether he killed himself is the question. Faith goes and looks through his scientific journals and discovers these writings on this mysterious thing called the Lie Tree. This tree, if you speak lies to it and convince other people that these lies are true, will bear a fruit, and the fruit then, if you eat it, will uncover a greater truth. Basically, Faith is on a mission to find this tree and hopes that she will be able to uncover the truth about her father's death. It was a really brilliantly paced novel. I found it to be really gripping, and the whole story as it went along was just really wonderfully done. There were so many holes that it could have fallen down and it didn't, like the fact that she could have fallen for this boy that was there and it could have been like a love story, an insta-love thing going along, but it didn't happen. That was great. I really liked that. Another thing I really loved about this book was the discussion of women and intelligence and science and things like that, because at the time that this is set, women aren't considered to be intelligent at all and that they shouldn't be scientists. Faith wants to be a scientist and she wants to take after her father, but she is constantly being told that her brain's too small and she's not capable of doing the things that men do, and the whole discussion of that all throughout the book was just really well done. There was just a whole undercurrent of kind of feminist views and just hints at different things, and I just thought it was really good. I think everyone should go and read this. If you have any interest, if you think the story is something you will like, you should definitely go and pick it up. I've got so many bloody books to talk about and they've all been so good this month. So the next one I've got here is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This one is a historical fiction set in Iceland in the 1820s. It's set around a woman who has been accused of murdering her lover and she is basically going to be executed. She calls upon a kind of local priest because she wants to speak to him, and he hopes to kind of absolve her of her sins, and they end up speaking and she ends up sharing her story and it kind of goes on from there. So this is actually set on true events. Like, I didn't realise that until I got to the end of the book and read the kind of author's note that this execution of this woman who murdered people actually did happen. What I loved about this book was that the whole pace of it was just really slow. It was a very quiet and slow moving story. Like, it didn't feel like really intense or anything. It just felt atmospheric, and there was already this kind of melancholy beautiful feeling to the book. I don't really know how to explain it. If you read it, then maybe you'll know and you can describe it better than me in the comments. The whole thing just made me want to dip into the book and kind of meet these characters and speak and see the places. The whole landscape that was described was just gorgeous, and it just made me want to visit Iceland basically. This one, for cultural kind of things to do with Iceland, was just really wonderful. Like, even just down to the way that they name their children after themselves, I found really interesting because I didn't know that before. Overall, I think it's one that's going to stick with me for a while, because even now I'm thinking of the story and the kind of feeling that it gave me is still there, and I think it's just really great, so you should definitely go and pick it up if you get the chance. Next we have a short story collection, which is St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves by Karen Russell. This is my second short story collection and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I picked it up. So I don't really know how to describe this one other than each of the stories has an element of magical realism there. I definitely got pulled in by each of the stories as it went along, and I was definitely a little bit sad each time one ended because they were just so beautiful and just perfect in their own little ways. So yes, I can't really explain this one any better than that, but you should definitely go and pick it up if you like magical realism and things like that. We've got 2 books left. The first one is The Haunted Hotel by Wilkie Collins. If you know me, you'll know that I really love Wilkie Collins writing. I've only read The Woman in White and The Moonstone. I thought both of them were fantastic. Equally, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. If you want to dip your toe into Wilkie Collins and you haven't tried anything yet, I would recommend that you pick up this one. It's very short and very easy to read. To me, Wilkie Collins is like if Agatha Christie and Jane Austen had a baby. So all of Wilkie Collins' books that I have read so far have an element of mystery to them. Either someone's died, something's gone missing, you're trying to work out who's done what basically, and it's the same in this book. Someone has been murdered and they don't know what's going on. They end up going to the hotel and all of the family of this person are getting weird, freaky feelings, weird things are happening in this hotel, and they're trying to work out what's happened. And the Jane Austen element of these books is the kind of witty overtones and the way that the kind of hilarious story ensues, the way that all the characters kind of interact with each other and the things that they say to each other, and just the ridiculousness of it all, really, that just perfect. It's just brilliant. This one is set in London and in Venice, where this haunted hotel is, and it's just a really great read. I would highly recommend to all. And on to the final book that I read this month, and probably my favourite one, although it is still a 4-star read, and it is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So this one is set in America, and it follows the story of a young boy who gets into this college. When he gets to this college, he sees this group of like 5 other students who are kind of set apart from the rest, and they have this one Greek teacher, and they all learn Greek from this teacher. This teacher is very selective over who he wants to teach, and basically our main character wants in on that. He wants to be taught and he wants to make friends with this kind of elusive group of students. So obviously, as the story would go, he manages to get into this Greek class and he makes friends with this strange group of people, and he starts to notice things. He ends up going with them to their kind of country house, and he notices that they do strange things, and they're quite secretive about where they're going and what they're doing, and they're coming in at all times of the day, at all times of the night, and covered in mud and doing strange things. And he's slowly trying to work out what it is that they're up to and what it is that they're hiding from him. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you can probably guess that they're not up to any good. It's then up to our main character as to whether he decides to leave the group and whether he decides to report the things that they've been doing, or whether he decides to join them and kind of get wrapped up into the world that they have created for themselves. To call this book atmospheric would be an understatement. This book was just phenomenal. Like, it just completely enraptured me in the whole story. All of the characters were amazing. Like, although each of them had kind of very flawed traits and nasty things about them, I just loved each individual one, and it was a real like character study of each of them, and it was just fantastic. Like, I can't describe how much I enjoyed this book, and I know now that I'll go and pick up The Goldfinch, and I think I've got The Little Friend as well by Donna Tartt that I want to read now because I thought this book was so good. I would definitely highly recommend this one. Donna Tartt has a beautiful way of writing. The whole story just completely grabbed me, pulled me in. It was amazing. If you want to pick this one up, if you haven't got it yet, definitely go and get it. If you've got it on your TBR, drop whatever you're reading right now and pick it up. It's just fantastic. I would highly recommend. There we are. Those are all the books that I read in April. Let me know down below what you've been reading, or if you've read any of these books that I've spoken about today, let me know what you thought of them. As always, I will leave links to Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, everything I've mentioned today down below. I've also done reviews for all of these books on my blog and on Goodreads, so if you want to go and follow me there, that would be fantastic. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye! Tease in a recent video, and I really enjoyed that book. It really hit me. Like, I cried a lot. This one, Like Salt to